Hello everyone. Welcome to Super Coaching UPSC by Textbook. This is Venkatesh, your faculty for geography. Now you might be wondering, what if I say that Africa would be dividing into two parts eventually in the next 50 million years? What if I say that the volcanoes, which are the reasons for Deccan basaltic lava sheets in India, is a product of active volcanism? Let us understand all these things through a concept called hotspots and mantle plumes. This topic today will help you to realize about the things like, will the African region will be splitting into two parts, forming a new continent, and where the earth will now have 8 continents. So that is the topic which we'll be discussing. Call it as the mantle plumes and the hotspots. Let us try to understand about it. Before we try to understand about this mantle plumes and hotspots, I wanted to have you a basic idea of plate tectonics. Okay, UPSC can ask questions about a topic like this in this way, where they can ask, what do you mean by mantle plume and what is its role in plate tectonics? Define mantle plume and explain its role in plate tectonics. Before I explain this one, let me have a brief background of the brief background of plate tectonics. For example, when I try to explain the plate tectonics, you all know the basics. The earth can be divided into multiple plates. Each plate is what we call it as the earth can be divided into multiple parts. Each part is what we call it as plates. And what is happening to these plates? These plates are floating in the asthenosphere. This is the belt of asthenosphere. What is asthenosphere? Nothing but the layer of the half solid, half liquid layer of magma. That is what it is, asthenosphere. And when you have the plates in the asthenosphere, which is happening, now we all know this. Why do you think that two plates are actually moving towards each other? So imagine this is plate 1. This plate is moving towards each other. What explains this plate movement? This plate movement is explained by the convective currents which are moving in the interior of the earth like this. So when two plates are moving towards each other, it's an indication of underneath it there is some kind of convective currents of magma. Magma is moving from one place to another, and this magma is what is driving the layer above it, or in other words, the crust above it or the plate above it. That is what it is, the idea of plate tectonics. And when these plates move, this is the time you do find volcanism on the earth's surface. For example, here, when this plate gets subducted here in this way, what will happen? It will give rise to a volcanism chain here. A new volcanoes would be created here. So when two plates move, you do find volcanism at the boundary margins. When two plates move away, then also you are finding plate boundaries. At that plate boundary, you are finding volcanism. So plate boundaries are the centers of volcanic activity. What is that? Plate boundary are the centers of volcanic activity. If perhaps plate boundaries is the center of the volcanic activity, then you should be asking about the next thing. Majority of the volcanoes which you find are always at the center, right? But sometimes there are certain kind of plate boundaries, there are certain kinds of volcanoes which are not found at the center. So let me explain this question. Now when you talk about mantle plume, first you need to explain what are they. What are they? Mantle plumes are this is the thing. The uniqueness is this. Intraplate volcanism. Mantle plumes are intraplate volcanism activities, or plumes are associated with intraplate volcanism activity. So what happens is, in some of the places, when you know that, for example, if this is the crust and this is the mantle, there are certain places within the mantle, and we also find that this is the asthenosphere, right? This is what we have studied from the interior of the earth, right? The upper portions of the mantle is the asthenosphere, above it you have the crust, and here you will be having the surface. But because of certain processes, because of certain heat which is extraordinarily available in the interiors of the earth, say in the deeper portions of the mantle, there is an opportunity of certain mantle which rises, say example, from here like this. So what is that? So there will be some kind of a pipe-like structures which will be developed because it's a liquid which is rising, and this liquid which is rising moves across the solid mantle and comes and reaches the earth's surface. So what is a mantle plume? Is a rising part of the volcano or rising part of the magma occurring from deep inside the earth interior. So mantle plumes are rising part of the what? I hope you all are following. I hope you all are following. Right? So mantle plumes are rising part of the what do you say? Heat patches of the mantle. So simply what we are trying to say, we all know that interior of the earth is having more heat, but certain areas are having much more heat than the surroundings. The reason, the the radioactive materials. These radioactive materials are concentrating at certain place, and that way you are finding more heat. This heat is rising now. As this heat is rising, because they have buoyancy. See, when there is more heat, there will be movement, and because of that, the magma is rising here. As this magma is rising, these hot areas which are rising from the deeper mantle portions is what we call it as mantle plumes. Now, you all might have heard about something called as hotspot. In a phone, you have a hotspot, no? Say I have a phone here. This phone, when I on my hotspot, what does it indicate? What does it indicate? When I start my hotspot, what does it indicate? This phone is acting as a center of where the information is being transported, information is being shared across different phones, no? That's what the thing is, hotspot. You all have a Wi-Fi you have a hotspot, and this is now acting as a center of data transfer. Similarly, you do find that sometimes when the mantle plume reaches the earth's surface, there is a volcano which is being observed, which is usually not observed at such places. That's why it is called as hot spot. So usually what we know is interior edges of the plate, we do find volcanoes, yes, but here we are not finding volcanoes. In the interior of the plate, at the intraplates, you are not supposed to find volcanoes, but you are finding. Those are the ones you are calling it as hotspots. So what are hotspots? Rising mantle plumes, rising mantle plumes. This rising mantle plumes can actually create a volcanic hotspot at the surface. So what is the hotspot? Is nothing but a volcanic feature found on the surface of the earth because of hotspots, because of mantle plumes. And usually such kind of volcanoes, they actually don't they don't erupt like a fountain. They erupt and they actually distribute. That is where these are called as basaltic lava sheet, or they'll call it as flood basalts. Basalts are flood. You can see here they are called it as flood basalts. Now, one important event you need to understand here is when this mantle plume is rising, it is not like when the mantle plume is rising and reaching the Earth's surface, you are also finding that the plate is also static. The plate is not just static, it is also moving. So, you have a plate. Now, you see here, this is the plate. This plate is not static, it is in motion. The plate is moving like this. Now, what is happening? So, when, for example, when when a mantle plume is rising and creating a hotspot on the Earth's surface, and the hotspot is releasing around the volcanoes now, it creates a flood basalt. This flood basalt is not static because of the plate movement. For example, there is a plate which is moving, imagine like this. There is a hotspot. Now there is a hotspot and this is creating some volcanoes here, and this process is continuous. And there is a plate which is moving like this. Now, when the plate is moving, when the volcano is created, the first volcano is created here. Over a period of time, this plate is moving. Now, this volcano would be here. There will be a new volcano which is creating. In other words, they will be creating a volcanic trail. You can see here, there is a flood basalt here, right? All of you, you can see this, there is a flood basalt. Then this is the flood basalt which is moving because of the plate, and new volcanoes are being created. This is what we call it as volcanic trail. How do you think that the Deccan lava plateau has been formed? It is formed because of the same process. Let me explain that. You can see here, this is the hotspot. It is a mantle plume rising, creating a hotspot. A volcano is created and the plate is moving like this. You are finding a series of volcanoes. Similarly, when the Deccan Plateau was formed, so what we have observed was there are some kind of hotspot volcanic islands in the Indian Ocean called it as Reunion Islands. Reunion Islands. Then when Indian Peninsula was nearer to this region, this is when you find the volcanism which created. So Deccan basalt was formed, and slowly, see, imagine what is happening. Imagine this is the southern part, this is the northern part. The Indian plate is moving like this. This is the Reunion hotspot. So when the Indian plate came in contact with the Reunion hotspot, there created a basaltic lava sheet, the Deccan basalt, the Deccan lava plateau, and it started moving. And you have created a more amount of volcanic chain. It got spread out. I told you here, when this lava erupts, it is highly liquid. It is not like it is not having kind of, it is because it is having highly liquid, it can easily spread out. It is not having any kind of materials which is leading to solidifying very, very quickly. Because it is highly viscous and highly liquid, it moves, it flows. As it flows, so from the Reunion hotspot, it created a flood of basalt, right? So such kind of volcanism, when there is more spreading outwards rather than fountain-like structures, what we call it as basalts. Basalt is one type of igneous rock. Now, when this igneous rock is there, the basalts, you do find that the plate is in motion, the plate is continuously moving. You do find that this is where you are finding the flood basalt. So, Deccan Plateau has been formed in this way. And when Indian plate was part of the southern hemisphere, as part of the continental drift, where Indian plate hasn't reached, you do find this phenomena. So, what explains the role of Deccan basalts, mantle plumes in the role of plate tectonics is one, they help in creating volcanic landforms of basaltic lava plateaus like Deccan Plateau. That is number one. What is that? They help in developing basaltic lava plateaus. Example, Deccan Plateau or the Deccan Traps. So Deccan Traps are the volcanic features. This is number one. Number two, you need to understand is, what if this occurs on a plate? What if this occurs on the landmass? Let me explain this. Occurs on the land. If this occurs on the land, what will happen? Anyone, can you tell me what will happen? A new island, a new kind of a continent can be created. How? Let me explain. So imagine this is a plate. You do find kind of there is a volcanism here, right? There is a rising limb. Okay. Now you do find in this way. As this happens, what is the next thing which will happen is the crust will be slowly thinning it out. So what is happening here? The magma is rising and it is slowly thinning it out. This process is what we call it as crustal thinning. Crustal thinning. This is the mantle plume. This is a plate. So at the interior of the plate, at the center of a plate, you do find magma is rising. All of you, are you following here? Because this magma is rising in this way, you do find in this way the plate, you are finding the plate. At the center of the plate, the magma is rising and the plate is slowly thinning down because the rising plume is having enough kind of heat, and then it reaches the surface. Now, as it reaches the surface, what will happen? You can see here. Now, what is happening? The volcano is rising now. As the volcano keeps on rising, over a period of time, what happened? This plate, can I say that it got divided into two parts? There is a new part which got separated. This is what is. This is when you will lead to formation of a minor ocean. What is that? Formation of a minor ocean. How do you think that Red Sea has been formed? Red Sea has been formed because of this phenomena. If the same process continues, you do find that Africa gets separated into two parts like this. You can see that if this is the Africa, Africa has some kind of a rift valley. There is some kind of a rift, what is a fault lines which are created along the Great Lakes, along the lakes here, Lake Victoria, Lake Tanganyika and all those kind of things. There is a rift chain which is developed here. Now this rift, now here underneath it, you are finding the mantle plumes. This will slowly separate this landmass from this region, and over a period of time, Africa will be separated into like this. So the Horn of Africa, this is where you are finding the Djibouti, the islands of Reds, the geopolitical importance of the straits and all, if you can see, that will get separated. For this to occur, it does not occur in one day, isn't it? Geomorphology, I told you n number of times. Geomorphology, for them to occur, you have to see it from a, from a CCTV camera of say, of somewhere around 50 million years of age. If you have the data of 50 million years, then you can find the visibility of change. So that means you should have a data of 50 million years. Then you have to watch that video, I say in around 1000x speed. We all watch in YouTube, no? 1x, 1.5x, 2x speed. So then you have to watch that in 1000, 10,000x speed. Then you find the minor difference. So geomorphology occurs in longer time frames, not on one day. So these observations of that, the plate of this African plate is actually drifting, is actually moving away, drifting away, has been observed by so many years. And the scientists have studied even the variety of rock features which are observed on the plateaus of this region. Say you have some of the plateaus in the Kenyan region and the Ethiopian region. They have also observed and taken the samples of the rocks, understood what are its characteristics, when it has found, and they are trying to have a correlation. So people have went all along the mountain, volcanic mountains, say along these regions, Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania and all, you do find some kind of mountains, volcanic mountains. Kilimanjaro, one important volcanic mountain. So all these volcanic mountains, they went for a survey, they have taken the samples, they have observed what are the features, they have seen whether the rift can happen as such. In 2018, there was a big rift which was found in the Kenyan region, and there was also a talk that it has separated one major highway also. Keeping all this into considerations, in the future, you do find such kind of phenomena. So because of this, what happens? The crustal will be thinning it out, the minor ocean would be creating, rift valley would be created, rift valleys, and thereby formation of new continent, formation of new continent. So if it develops in the ocean, what will happen? It creates a new island chain of volcanoes. If it develops on the land, it will create new continents. The continent would be rifting apart. You don't find significant, huge number of mantle plumes all across the earth, but you do find some mantle plumes and the hotspots. So one such mantle plume and hotspot is the Hawaii Island in Pacific Ocean of region of USA, Hawaii Island. You see along the Pacific plate, you have the Hawaii Islands. These are also a reunion hotspot. Similarly, in the Indian Ocean, just now I told you, sorry, in the Indian Ocean, I have told you the reunion islands. This is in the Indian Ocean. This is the Pacific Ocean. And the third one, the mantle plumes of East African Rift Valley. Mantle plumes and hotspots of East African Rift Valley. I hope you all have understood this point now. All of you, have you understood this? Have you understood what do you mean by mantle plume? What do you mean by Rift Valley? How do they have a relevance with respect to our hotspots and all? Right? So this is what the things are. So when they have UPSC has asked a question, define mantle plume and explain its role in plate tectonics. You should explain what is a mantle plume. Mantle plume is associated with intraplate volcanism. It is a rising event of a volcanoes, rising event of magma from not just from the asthenosphere, from deep inside the mantle, right? So deep inside the mantle. So it's a solid, the mantle is a solid, but within the solid, there are conduit pipe-like structures which would be developed, and along with it, this huge heat sources are rising because they have so much amount of heat which is pushing the region above it. And they keep on, melting the entire, whatever the solid portions which are coming in between, and they rise to the surface, and even on the surface, they are thinning out the crust. In other words, they are melting the crust, and that is leading to a chain of volcano which is being created, right? So this is the idea of mantle plumes and hotspots, and their role in plate tectonics is creation of a new continent. Say something like the African plate getting separated. It is in news. Even last year studies were conducted and it was telling about the same things, and this would lead to in this way. Hope you all have understood this. And this is how the dynamism of plate tectonics can happen. This is what the mantle plume and plate tectonics are, right? So this is about the content. If you want the PDF file, you can get into my Telegram channel and get that, right? And then Africa would be separating into two, right? You can get this PDF file in the Telegram channel. And for any other doubts and all, Any other doubts and all, you can always ask me in the Telegram channel. We'll also have a doubt session in the near future. That's it about today, all of you. Then thank you. Hope you all have understood this. Until we meet next time, read well, have a good time, learn. Happy learnings to all of you. Thank you.